So in the last class, we started with the fabrication process, and we saw how in an industry environment your fiber is fabricated. You came across few terms which I defined for you were preform. So what is preform? It is a solid glass layer. You can say a glass rod like this, which has a core material and a cladding also. So it is, you can say, a thick form of it. Then it is put into a furnace, and with the gravity under the molten state, when it falls, it gets or attains the dimensions of a fiber, and once they are attained, it is rolled on a spool, and then as per the testing, you test various parameters and find out the whether and you find out whether those parameters fit as per your requirement, or basically the data sheet for the fiber is prepared so that the customer, when they are using, they know about the characteristics, which includes the attenuation, dispersion, and the core cladding refractive index profile. Everything is there as per the data sheet. So the for two-step majorly, as the fiber fabrication has the fabrication of a preform or a solid rod, and then drawing of the fiber from the preform. So preform will have a refractive index profile, whether it is a step index or a graded index. Depending upon the profile that you set, you will have the profile in the preform, the geometry of the core and the cladding, and also this purity has to be maintained. High level of purity has to be maintained by making a preform, because any impurity in this state get transferred to the fiber and becomes the center for the attenuation. Then comes is, how do we get the different refractive index profile? It is by doping, adding the dopants to the silicon glass, that your pure silicon glass that you are using. The impurities that we add to the core or the cladding are so germanium, aluminum, phosphorus, titanium, and also these glasses, that is titanium oxide, germanium oxide, for all these glasses, they change the refractive index, and as per the doping profile that is required, these dopants, basically the concentration of the dopant is varied, and it has to be a very controlled manner that we need to conduct it, because then only we'll get the required profile. As you have seen, the profile for a step index, it's uniform in the core, but for the graded index, you want your refractive index to change layer by layer. So accordingly, we need to control these dopants so that we get the required doping profile, and that is very important. So you can see here the change in the refractive index with the dopants that are being added, what type of refractive index we get with these dopant concentrations. The basic equations that we'll be using for making the preform. Okay, so as you can see, you have the pure glass material, and with the oxidation, your glass is formed, the silicon glass, the germanium glass. Pure glass is formed, and the gas chlorine glass is released in all the cases. So these are the basic equations that will be taking place in the furnace when you are converting the pure powdered form of a glass material into a molten preform, that is a solid glass that you want to convert it to. Then now coming to how do we fabricate it? The most, if I talk about historical or traditional method, what it was it's called as a stratified method, in which a glass rod was taken and in the molten cladding material it was simply dipped and taken out, and that could give it the cladding coating over it. So that was a very crude method, and in that we had a very high attenuations, because in this process of coating with the cladding material there were chances of air gaps getting introduced into it, some kind of stress and strain at the core and the cladding interface, which resulted into the centers for attenuation and dispersion. And to avoid that, we need a very, you can say, a very a better method. We need to have the right refractive index profile with the minimum kind of any kind of impurities, or even 1 part per million. If you will see, we will see the data, that is 1 part per million of an impurity present in the fiber becomes a center for the losses. And that has to be avoided, because you know how did the fiber come into actual commercial use was when we could reduce the attenuation to as low as 20 dB per kilometer, which presently when we are using 1550 nanometers, it has come down to zero point 0.2 dB per kilometer. So that has come only with the advancement in the fabrication process, and that has come only because of the fabric improvement in the fabrication process. So right now the two most or you can say the best processes that are used for fabrication are the vapor phase deposit. Under the vapor phase deposition method is axial deposition and the MCVD method, that is modified chemical vapor deposition. So these are the two processes that we'll be studying in detail and understanding how it is able to give us the required refractive index profile, along with how we can actually control the refractive index profile in this. So this, if I talk about the vapor phase deposition technique, under this, the starting material definitely is a very pure form of the glass, the basic equations we have seen. And then we have two methods. One is the flame hydrolysis and the other is a chemical vapor deposition. In this, vapor axial deposition and outside vapor phase oxidation, these are the two methods that we will be trying to understand. And then the MCVD. Once your preform is formed by this process, then you after getting this preform, you go to the fiber drawing technique, that is converting that preform into the fiber of the required dimensions. Definitely that process takes place in a furnace. So we'll be doing this vapor phase. And so first starting with vapor phase axial deposition. So this is the setup, right? So the starting point is this, where you have a seed, right? A crystal seed where the deposition will take place. Now in this, what is happening is you have the two burners. These are two burners where from one burner you are inserting the gaseous form of these material, that is a pure glass material that is being inserted, the vapor is being inserted, and any kind of impurity that we want to introduce to add to the change the refractive index profile, that both are being controlled and they are being inserted. So in this form, what is happening is on the seed material, these vapors are getting deposited. There are two motions that are taking place. One is the fiber is getting basically being pulled up slowly up, as well as this fiber is continuously, this rod on which the deposition is taking place is continuously rotating for uniform deposition that you get for the preform. So there are two motion, as you can see. One is an upward pull and the other is a rotational movement. Now this soot, it's in the form of a soot or the vapor that is being deposited. So it's in an amorphous form, the soft form, like whenever you lit a diya, right? So there is a fumes that are getting deposited. So that kind of soot is getting deposited here. And this soot, when is very amorphous or a porous material that it is. Now, once in this process, you have the cooling also taking place and exhaust for the, because silicon gas is continuously being released when this uh, reactions are taking place, and once it is pulled, the gases are exhausted, and this gas is used for the basically the coolant. As it is being pulled, the second part of this process is exposing this porous preform to the carbon furnace. So at high temperature, what happens is this porous preform converts into a transparent preform that can be further used for fiber drawing. The advantage of this process is that it's a continuous process, right? It's a growth that is taking place, and in this we are able to fabricate a long length of a fiber, and that is why this method has, and also as you can see, you have a strict control over the profile that is being deposited, that is the refractive index profile that is being fabricated, and therefore it has got more its advantages in a sense that it gives you lesser attenuation with the better refractive index profile as needed by the customer. So maybe with the change in the requirement, what may happen is your customer requirements may be changing the refractive index profile that they want. So everything can be easily fabricated. It's like having a control, or through your programming automatic control, we can actually control these burners for release of the vapor. And here what is happening is, this is a process of dehydration, that is any kind of vapor that is being present, this reacts with the SOCl2 vapors that is getting inserted into this furnace and releases the SO2 gas and HCl gas, removing any kind of water vapor. Because what is happening is, water vapor, if we will see the characteristic attenuation of the fiber, the why we are not able to use the full band of say from 800 to 15 or 1600 nanometers, we have certain peaks of attenuation. And the reason for those peaks is the presence of the OH ion, which comes into the fiber as a part of the fabrication process, because you have a lot of coolants being circulated, as well as there is an oxidation process, and in this process there is a deposition of an OH ion in the fiber preform itself, which again becomes the center for absorption. So we have to take care that any kind of OH ion, that presence of that water vapor or OH ion has to be removed in the formation process itself, so that we have minimum attenuation in the fiber and a larger band for using that can be used for signal transmission. Okay. So maybe achieved. I have already talked about this. So we this method could give you the attenuation as low as attenuation of pure silica with the medium attenuation of 0.35 dB per kilometer, 0.21 dB at the wavelengths of 1.3 and 1.55 micrometers. So that's an advantage that we get, that from say 20 dB per kilometer with this method, you are not only getting the required refractive index profile, but also you are getting a very low attenuation, because you are closely controlling any kind of impurity getting inserted into your fiber. Now, this is called as vapor phase axial deposition. Now coming to MCVD. Now, modified chemical vapor deposition, the starting material is that you see the outside is a glass tube. Inside this, you are inserting the gaseous form of your glass and the impurities that you want to deposit. They are continuously, and this tube that you see is also continuously revolving. There is a heater, that is a traversing heat source, which is continuously moving back and forth to heat the surface where the soot, that is the vapors, are getting deposited. So these vapors that are getting inserted into the fiber as per the required profile get deposited on the walls of the glass. This heat source, silica tube glass, and this heat source, which is traversing continuously forward and backward, converts that soot that is being deposited into a solid glass continuously. You can say layer by layer that is being deposited, and it is getting solidified also. There we saw in vapor axial deposition, that is once the preform was formed, then it was exposed to a furnace where that preform was converted into a solid glass. Okay, now in this case it is you can say continuously the layers are been getting deposited, and it is being converted into a solid glass layer by layer. Now it is also called as inside vapor phase deposition. Like outside, there is one method called as, before this I should have, actually that's not part of your syllabus, but still I would like to explain the word outside vapor phase deposition. The process is same. Here what is happening is you take a kind of a initial rod, right, on which these soot are getting deposited, right, layer by layer. Again you have a traversing heat source that is actually depositing and making it into a solid preform. Okay, and it's outside of the glass rod on which you are depositing. Once you get the required preform, means cladding, core, all this, like after core profile, you deposit your cladding. Okay, once your preform profile is formed, what is done is, this particular rod, which is the central starting material, is simply pulled out of it. And in this process what happens is, this preform that is formed, the preform which is being formed will have certain cracks, right? Because you are pulling it out, they will have certain cracks, and this becomes the center of your losses. Because what is happening is, it's a kind of at the core, because it is at the core you want, and at that too along the axis, this kind of errors are occurring or the problems are occurring, and it becomes a major center of attenuation, and you could not achieve a large dip in the attenuation. So this outside vapor that is over the rod you are depositing, instead of that, now in this MCVD method, inside you have a tube, and inside that tube you are doing your deposition, and that is why this is outside vapor deposition, this is called inside vapor deposition. Okay. After your preform has been formed, this whole preform setup is further exposed to high temperatures around 1700 and 1900 degrees centigrade. And what happens is, this outside silica glass that you see is collapses, and what you get is the pure preform, which is not having any kind of cracks, because you tried to pull up the starting material on which this preform was getting deposited, and therefore you get the solid preform, which is after means high temperature. What will happen is, outside glass will simply get uh, broken out, and what you remain is a solid preform method. So this was the method that was explained in the video. That is, continuously you could see the flames, right? The heat flames, if you remember, you could see that were continuously revolving as well as moving forward and backward. That was a method that was shown in the video which I shared with you. So the chemical reactions are the same which I have shown you for the vapor phase axial deposition. That is the same chemical reactions are taking place, and there is a heat flame that is traversing forward and backward. First makes the core and the cladding depositions, and then you get a solid preform. It's a highly automated process, as I said. Depending upon the requirement, you give your inputs and it controls the deposition layer by layer. It's not that you just have a material solidify, which used to be the traditional method where we used to have a large attenuation. Now it's a layer by layer controlled process that you have. And the impurities that may be present will be, as said, as OH impurities, and that definitely can be reduced because it is being carried out in the closed environment, and we can make a fibers of the length of 100 to 200 kilometers using this particular method. Means the preform size will be such large that you get converted. Now, after the preform is formed, the next process is the fiber drawing. Now, how do we do the fiber drawing is, you saw that day that the preform is converted into a molten form and then dropped through a vertical furnace, right? You would see that day the furnace was not horizontal, it was a vertical furnace where the gravity was the main, you can say, the player to convert the thick preform rod into the thin fibers, as you can see. And in dropping, what is happening at high temperature, it is dropping. And this whole process, there were monitors at various points which were talking about what is the right dimension has been there or not, in case additional coating material is to be applied. That was continuous process of fiber attaining the right dimensions, getting coated with an material, then monitoring the refractive index, as well as rolling it. Now after attaining the right, there is a drum on which it is continuously rolled, and maybe 100-kilometer rolls are made. If we get a chance to meet in March, I'll be able to show you all this setup. But still, for the practical today, I'm trying to make how we do practically and then simulation. That videos I'm making, and I'll be sharing with you while we are doing our practicals. Okay, so once the fiber is made, this is the fiber that is drawn. We cannot use it directly in the field that day, as also I told you that, because they are made up of glass and very brittle. And those who have that TCS ion connection, I was just talking with somebody yesterday, they were having that, but they are very brittle too. And basically, because we are used to handling the fiber, that broadband coming to our house, not so carefully, basically. So she was telling that within 3 months there was a problem with the cable because they did not handle it properly. So there is a requirement that this, since it's made up of glass, you need to actually make it strong before taking it to the user end. So you have various coatings. That is, after the cladding, there is a plastic coating, then you have some fibers, then a jacket. All this makes it into the multiple layers, and then you have a strength material. Then you, at that day I had shown you that you have a various arrangements, the patterns that you follow to make your cables, so that you give it the required strength, protect it from the environment, and so that it can perform well. Okay, so this is what is a configuration, that is coherent and the incoherent bundle that depends upon the configuration that we have, the non-aligned in a particular fashion, jumbled up, no pattern is being followed and aligned properly in a relative position of the fiber at the input and the output end. So that's a coherent. So this is what we have. Now coming to, once you have a fiber, there is a lot of testing has to be done before you give it to your customer, so that they know at what length they should be putting the repeater, when they should be having basically signal boosting, so that the depending upon your connection length, your signal is reaching at the destination and your user is able to retrieve the information. So for that, we need to understand what are the centers of losses, how much losses are happening in the fiber, what is the maximum data rate that I can transmit. So the two majorly, if you talk about what are the factors that impact the signal transmission through the fiber, one is the attenuation and the second is the dispersion. What is attenuation? It is the reduction in the power, right? It's a loss in the power, that is the pulse which was say having a 5 milliwatt of power. Now maybe at the destination it may be reaching with 1 milliwatt of power. So there is a reduction in the amplitude. So there is a reduction in the power that the pulse is carrying. That's maybe because of you can say absorption in the fiber, scattering in the fiber, bending in the fiber. So these are the reasons for the attenuation. And definitely this can be repaired, because once you have the signal boosters or the optical amplifiers placed in your network, it is able to help you to boost the signal strength. Okay. So now the next part, reason why we need to do or understand the characteristics of a fiber is the process of dispersion. That is, if your pulse has a width of say 1 nanosecond, and once it reaches your destination, it has got a pulse width of 1 microsecond. And if you are sending the pulses at a rate higher than, means every pulse is coming before that 1 microsecond, what will happen is there will be an overlapping and an aliasing. So that will limit your bandwidth. Although you were sending the pulses of such a small dimension, but still because of dispersion, you are limiting the um, your bandwidth. So the next thing that we need to understand is what are the reasons of dispersion and how they can be controlled. Definitely the dispersion increases with the increase in length, as your attenuation increases with the increase in length. So we define a parameter called as attenuation constant, which talks about how much will be the attenuation per kilometer, so that how much we can afford or where we should place a repeater, that decisions can be taken to boost the signal level so that it reaches the destination. So as I was talking about, the two major players of your loss mechanism in fiber is attenuation and dispersion. What is attenuation? As you can see, is reduction, and dispersion is the pulse getting broader. So what are the different type of attenuation that we will be studying is absorption, scattering, and bending. And in dispersion, it is intramodal. That is for a single mode fiber, the dispersion is intramodal. That because of the mode itself, we come across certain problems. That is an intramodal. Intermodal is when you are transmitting multiple modes. Because of the presence of multiple modes, you come across a dispersion that is called as intermodal. The polarization mode dispersion, depending upon the polarization of the mode, again the characteristics of the medium changes and results in the dispersion. So under absorption, we have two classification as intrinsic and extrinsic. Intrinsic is basically the glass material that you are using, right? That becomes the reason for absorption of a signal. And extrinsic, if you have any kind of impurity, presence of any kind of impurity, that becomes the center for absorption. Then scattering, we have a linear scattering and a non-linear scattering that is dependent upon how the power from the mode that is traveling through a fiber gets transferred to other mode, whether it's linearly or non-linear. Then bending losses, as I was talking about the case that those who have used that TCS ion cable fibers are experiencing that there is an attenuation of signal or breaking of the fiber because of the glass material that is being used. Even you will experience that the fiber, when we were using a copper cables, we were least bothered. We actually tie the cable, make it into a bundle so that it's not spread all over, to make it intact, keep it at one place. But that cannot be done with optical fibers. The reason being that when you rotate or make it into a bundle, if that size of the bundle is smaller than a specific value, which we call it as a critical radius, what happens is it results into an attenuation. Moreover, at the core cladding interfaces, there could be certain, in the profile, I should say, there could be certain bends that again results in the attenuation of a signal. Those are called as macro bends, right? So the bundling that we have is macro bends, and my micro bends are at the core cladding interface. Any problem with the refractive index profile. Then in intramodal, we have, because of material dispersion and the waveguide dispersion, we'll be doing the proof of all this when we'll be taking each one in details. So starting with the attenuation. Okay, so what is an attenuation? As was shown to you, you have a certain signal of say 5 milliwatt amplitude. Once it reaches a destination, the amplitude, basically I should not draw it as a perfect square, the amplitude also reduces. Now this is what we want to make it minimum, because, am I audible? Am I audible?
Oh, ma'am, your voice was
Now it's okay?
yes, ma'am.
Yeah, now it's okay? Okay. Now I could see my internet is weak, that it was shown. Okay. Now coming to how do we calculate this attenuation? So attenuation is nothing but how much power, how much amount your power at the output has reduced. So it is nothing but a ratio of output power by the input power. Okay, that the signal, you are sending a certain power but receiving some other power, that is basically because of the attenuation, and we calculate it in dB per kilometer. So the, for a link, if I say there is a reduction in power, I need to divide it by the length of the link to calculate how much attenuation is happening per length, because that helps me to decide what will be the exact position at which I should be putting the repeater to strengthen my signal, right? So instead of, maybe initially I was having a link with, say, after 50 kilometer, I'm having a repeater. But if after keeping it at 50 kilometer, my signal is not reaching the destination just because the power is less. So what I need to do is first calculate how much length, how much attenuation is happening for 50 kilometer, how much attenuation is happening for 1 kilometer, and then decide what should be the minimum sensitivity, that is minimum power reaching at my destination. And depending with that calculation, I need to decide what should be the location of my repeater to boost my signal levels and make it reach the destination in a form that you can always retrieve the information. Okay, so how do we calculate it? So as it's shown, we have attenuation of the pulses, we have repeaters to overcome the pulses. Right now we are only focusing on the amplitude. We will come to the broadening when we are talking about dispersion. So how do we calculate the losses? Loss is 10 log of P in by P out. The loss coefficient, as I said, we always calculate it in dBs, right? The power is not just the ratio of your powers. It is 10 log of value. So the unit becomes in decibels, dBs. And when I divide it by length, the unit is dB per kilometer, and the denotation for this representation is through alpha, right? So if my P in by P out is 1, so the loss is 10 log of 1, that is 0 dBs, 0 dB, and then 10, it is 10 dBs, and so on. Okay, so now one more unit you may come across while representation of the power is sometimes you will be given the input power in dBm and the output power in dB. So dB and dBm are different. So in a sense that dBm is with respect to 1 milliwatt. That means I am representing the power by 10 log of the power value divided by 1 milliwatt. It is with reference to the reference or the starting point, you can say, is 1 milliwatt. Above 1 milliwatt, how much is the value? That is what we can interpret it as. So whenever it is given dBm, it is nothing but 10 log of P by 1 milliwatt, and dB is simply the 10 log of the power value. Okay. So can we calculate the power in dBm for 1 milliwatt, 2 milliwatt? Quickly, everyone, can you do this and let me know the power values in dBm when my input is 1 milliwatt, 2 milliwatt, 5 milliwatt, 4 milliwatt, 0.5 and 0.25. Quickly do this. So this is just values given to you. Fiber loss in a link is 20 dB. That means then the input for 30 dBm input power, then the losses are calculated like this. So output power that will be received will be 10 dBm. Simple relation, loss is equal to, in dBs, definitely since it's logarithmic, it's input power minus the output power, because we are taking the ratio of P in by P out. Okay, now let's solve one problem. The mean optical power launched into a 8-kilometer length of a fiber is 120 microwatts. The mean optical power at the output is 3 microwatts. Okay. Okay. Determine the overall signal attenuation in decibels through the fiber, assuming no connectors or splices. The reason why the word no connectors and splices is used is when you are making a connection, like say if I'm making a connection, laying down a fiber, say from Mumbai to New York. So normally a fiber spool will be of a length of 100 kilometers, right? So beyond 100 kilometers, definitely this distance is not 100 kilometers. So how do we connect the fibers is by splicer joints or the connectors, right? So connectors, they are kind of, you can remove and reinstall. Splicers are, it's a kind of a permanent joint. So whenever you are making a joint, there are chances of some leakage of the power, right? And they become the centers of losses. And therefore, when you are calculating the total loss, we need to consider how much loss is there at these points of connectors and splices. For the present case, they are assuming no connector or splicer loss, right? Then how do we calculate how much is the overall loss? बताइए, directly अभी तो किया था calculate, फटाफट करिए, बताइए how will you calculate the signal attenuation. सिग्नल एटेन्यूएशन का फॉर्मूला बताइए क्या है हमारा 10 log of attenuation is equivalent to 10 log of pi by po, right? In dBs. 120 by 3 is 40, 10 log of 40, 7 point, yeah, pain, plus, positive आएगा ना, P in is higher than P out, yeah, correct, 16.02. Okay, now what is the signal attenuation per kilometer? How will you calculate? What is the link length? 8 kilometers, right? So what is your alpha? That is an attenuation parameter. It is nothing but the total loss, total attenuation divided by the link length. कितना आएगा? 16.02 divided by 8, 2.002. Yes. What will be the unit? Unit is dB per kilometer, correct. Okay. Now the overall signal attenuation for a 10 kilometer optical link using the same fiber with a splice at 1 kilometer interval, each giving an attenuation of 1 dB, right? Now you have your link, right? It's a 10 kilometer. This is the starting point. This is your 10 kilometer link. After every kilometer, you have a 1 kilometer, you have a splice. How many splice joints will be there? Tell me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and this is the 10th one. So how many splice joints are there in this? Yeah, correct, 9. Perfect. Everyone, do you agree how many splice joints will be there in a link of 10 kilometer? 9. Okay, so splice joints are 9. Okay. Now tell me how much is the total loss? Can anyone tell me? Number of splices is 9. What is the total loss for 10 kilometer? You know, the loss per kilometer is 2.002 per dB per kilometer because the same fiber is being used. Along with that, we have splices. Each splice is a center or gives you a 1 dB of attenuation. So what is your total loss? Total loss is equivalent to alpha L. Now L is 10 kilometer, the new L, not 8 kilometers, because he's asking for a 10 kilometer link length, plus plus 9 splices into number of splices into the loss per splice, that is 1 dB. Tell me how much it is. 20.02